storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening. There we go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for allowing us to come into your homes, your place of business, wherever you are tonight. I want to say thank you for allowing us to be able to sit with you and talk to you during times like this. We are living again in unprecedented times in our nation and in our world. And it is people like you that make survival possible. My friends, I do want to remind you, as we do every week, make sure that you protect yourself. Make sure that you wash your hands, use sanitizer, face covering, both for yourself and for others. Protect yourself. We need you. We need you. We need you. And the only way we're going to have you and keep you is if you protect yourself. Listen, my friends, before we get started tonight with what is a very important and urgent show tonight, we want to take a moment and acknowledge the passing of one of the great Americans that we have been fortunate and blessed to walk this earth with during our lifetime. As we said farewell today, as we seen a soldier in the army of justice go home, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 87 years old. She fought the fight of cancer. She was a role model to women, young, old, to women of every age, every color, every background. She was a role model to men. She was a role model to everyone. And so tonight, no matter what side of the political aisle that you stand on or sit on, no matter, this is probably our problem. We tend to look at different parts of the aisle when we fail to realize it's a human being that's gone. And so we take our hat off and we bow and we say thank you to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg for her years of dedicated service to this nation. My friends, we are closer than ever to one of the most critical elections of our time. And we need to look at some things that have taken place during our lifetime, some things that have taken place, that are taking place right now. And so we're committed to coming to you every week when we can to discuss these issues and these topics leading up to this election. And so tonight, I want to welcome our guest tonight. I want to welcome, as with us on a regular basis, Minister Kim Richardson, as well as our guest tonight, Mr. Gerard Morrison is with us tonight. I want to say thank you, sir, for joining us. And Minister Kim, thank you for joining us as well. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to Sign of the Time. Say, make sure I can hear you, because you know we're running into a technical problem in a minute.
Hello.
All right. We got you.
And thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Want to say thank you. Want to give you opportunity to introduce yourselves, and before we get started, I do want to challenge our viewers tonight. We're going to talk about the subject, as you've seen, gerrymandering. What is it? Y'all know what kind of question. Y'all know the question that I'm going to ask our guest tonight, and you know how I'm going to phrase it. I'm going to ask them the same question in the same manner that I always ask. So I'm going to, before we get to that, I'm going to let him introduce himself to us. But we're going to talk about gerrymandering. We're going to talk about this election that's coming up and how critical it is. But first, Mr. Morrison, thank you for joining us, and introduce yourself.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gerard Anthony Morrison. I'm a native of Hamlet, North Carolina. I went to college at the illustrious North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie pride to the Aggies there. I finished in agricultural business and a minor in banking. And before that, I was an Army veteran. I was stationed in Texas, in New Jersey, Fort Monmouth, also in Missouri and Fort Lee, Virginia. And then after that, while in college, I worked with two Congress folks. First one I worked with was Senator Terry Sanford, who was governor, senator for North Carolina, and president for Duke University. And he's a native of Laurinburg. Most people think he's Fayetteville, but he's really a native of Laurinburg, North Carolina. And the governor's school and all that stuff was started under him, as well as the community college system. After that, I worked with Mel Watt. So when you talk about gerrymandering, the district, during that time it was the 12th district. I was his first intern in the Greensboro office. So I was indirectly a product of gerrymandering, which helped get that year the first two elected Black Congress folks since Reconstruction for North Carolina. And then I'm a native of Hamlet, North Carolina, where the first Black to finish Chapel Hill's law school, attorney J. Kenneth Lee, who groomed Henry Fry, who became the first Chief Supreme Court Justice of North Carolina. He's from Ellaby, North Carolina. So both of them are Aggies, both of them are natives of Richmond County. And for those, they're also Noops, they're members of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. And other parts, I currently am the founder of the John Coltrane Music Edutainment Fest, where we bridge education with entertainment. And we target North and South Carolina, primarily rural areas in the South, in Sand Hills and the PD regions in North and South Carolina. And sporadically doing this, I'll say different folks who are from that region that you'll be shocked at.
All right.
And pretty much, then lastly, statewide campaign, I was director of outreach for a candidate, Hampton Dellinger. Speaking of gerrymandering again, his dad was the lawyer for Al Gore as well, and Bill Clinton, and he became Solicitor General.
Well, there you go.
All right.
So your girl down here in the White Office, I love it. I'm also from Richmond County, so my homeboy up there, we're very impressed and glad that you're going to be with us tonight. Now, as a history teacher, well, we're going to give it to you textbook style. And then once we hang out with those textbooks, then Bishop is probably going to be opening up cans of worms, and then I won't be able to get a word in edgewise. So
I'm going to ask him from the start. I'm going to ask him from the start to explain it. And then
see, I get it. I get it.
So that we can start instead of starting up high and having to work down, we start at the basic level, and then we'll work our way up. Maybe we can, get deeper.
I get it. So what is textbook gerrymandering? Let's talk about what that is.
Well, let me ask him like this. Here's my question. And Mr. Morrison, because we talked earlier about that wonderful city of Philadelphia. And in the movie Philadelphia, Denzel Washington is an attorney who asked a question to one of his witnesses, explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. I want you to explain it to us like a 6-year-old what gerrymandering is. Then we can talk about the textbook and the detailed part of it. But what is that word gerrymandering? Because we hear it a lot. And
Yeah.
some may be watching that have no idea what it is. Who is it named after?
Ooh, now the name I know that's been a while. I'm gonna respectfully yield to the history teacher for that one. But I know I think it was the guy's last name was Jerry, but I won't.
Yeah,
no.
Eldridge Jerry, Massachusetts governor.
There we go. Appreciate it. But pretty much is when you, for every area, based on this good census, and I want to make sure I slowly state the importance of having the U.S. Census answer. Before we talk about any of this, that's the foundation. Because if we're not recognized, not counted, we don't exist, and we won't exist for 10 years. And that's the key thing, because, and based on, I'm gonna go cumulative, if that's okay there, Bishop. And based on census numbers and the count, then you get the population. And in North Carolina, civil rights legislation, blacks became a protected class. And that's key thing for a law now is the protected class. And when you see discrimination cases, right, race, religion, etc. And basically for the district drawings based on the population and considering the protected classes, that's when the number of districts are determined for congressional representatives for the House of Reps. And from there, those districts get drawn considering the aforementioned about population and protected classes. And they're supposed to be proportionate to the population. So based on party, based on representation, and based on count. And then from there, the gerrymandering, because I think of like when Mel Watts district came about in 1992. Basically, it came along the highway because for population trends in North Carolina, a lot of the, I don't like using the word minority because I think if you're minority, you get treated as a minor cause. I think we're major people. So
may I interrupt you for a moment, Mr. Morrison?
Yeah.
I've never heard it put like that. You're saying before you get started, I hate to interrupt you, but you make it. It's almost as if we look at voting, how important voting is, and we forgot that doing filling out the census is right there as a twin sister.
It's the before any of this starts.
Okay.
That we got to have that.
We don't hear about the census. We hear about vote.
There we go. And that now you're gonna get me into a whole different thing there. That's because powers that be are pushing their party, and they're myopic issues. But when you want to deal with the full science of this, we got to know, like we were talking about, politics is local. Right. So if you don't count your household, you can't be more local than that. The first business is your household. And the first count for census is your household. And your property taxes is based on your household and your land and your car.
Wow.
Now, let's put, the gentleman hit that thing nail on the head. Now, let me give you a little bit of that textbook, and then we can go back and get back into our discussion where we're banging tables and stuff like that. Gerrymandering is a process of drawing district lines to give one party an advantage over another. Okay. As he said, with the districts, and if you will look at the states that are to the west, that was added after the Louisiana Purchase. Most of them have nice square shapes. North Dakota, South Dakota have nice square shapes. Utah, all of them over there. Oregon have nice square, nice neat lines, and that is important and actually has something to do with gerrymandering. When the districts are drawn nice and neat like that, then you usually have a representation that's pretty well even. The last time the district lines were drawn was in 2012, and we were gifted with the Republicans. Here is some facts that you need. The Republicans drew the lines this time because they had control over the General Assembly. Now, here's some facts about gerrymandering that you need to know. Districts that are mostly gerrymandered are, like he said, they're highly populated. They're usually urban areas and metro areas, okay? That type of thing. The most, out of the 10 most gerrymandered districts in the United States, 3 out of the most gerrymandered districts is found right here in North Carolina. District 12 is so gerrymandered that it actually made national news with this past senatorial race, and it's still it went to court, and we got all kind of problems going on. You got District 4 and you got District 1, the top 3 gerrymandered districts in the United States. We find out the concentration of districts that are most gerrymandered are usually found in the South, and they usually are red districts. Now, let me give you, I'm going to try to give you a visual of what we mean by gerrymandering. I hope that you all can actually see it. Y'all work, oh, listen, you can't see it. You can't see it. I was hoping that you'd be able to see it because I had pulled it up. District 12 starts at the top of the state and almost comes down completely to the end of North Carolina, and it looks like a meandering river. And what is the purpose of that? They don't have no problems with all of the seats being concentrated in a small area, okay? Because those are what is referred to as safe seats. But you have more of power and more of an electoral type situation going on when the districts are strategically drawn. Oftentimes the districts are strategically drawn to avoid concentrations. Now, ain't no use in me pretending like I'm a 35-year veteran, so y'all work with me tonight. But there is no use in me saying to you they often aren't racially motivated, because they are. They usually are used to divide up concentrations of votes, but or they're used to target concentrations of vote. But that is what gerrymandering is. The 2 most states that have the most gerrymandering is North Carolina and, get this one, Maryland. Now think about what just happened. Who did we just lose? We just lost our legend, John Lewis, right? And where was his district? Right there in Maryland, because you're talking about great big concentrations of the African American vote. They assume that the African Americans are going to vote concentrated Democratic. In North Carolina, what happened to us, because of gerrymandering, the Democrats were supposed to capture, they did capture the popular vote. They were supposed to capture 7 seats, but because of the strategically drawn lines, they only captured 4 of the seats that they were supposed to capture in the General Assembly, and therefore more of the Republican agenda was put forth in North Carolina. North Carolina actually has 11 to 13 electoral votes. You often wondered why. What do you mean by these battleground states? That's what this meant by that, because so many electoral votes. I have to jump on the train with Mr. Marston tonight. Mr. Marston, not only are we Richmond County, toot and heads up for John Coltrane, but I have to jump on this train. Fill out the census. You will not get represented if they don't know you exist. They will not.
One of the questions Ms. Daisy Perry is asking is that, is it true that the administration wants the census to be completed by December of 2020?
No, they backed up the date. Hello. Congress only allowed for funding for the United States Census to be completed by September the 30th, 2020, because Congress is the one that allots the funds for America to be counted. And here's something else. I don't think that you all know just how deep the census is. And maybe I can go ahead and, because he said every 10 years. The districting lines are drawn every 10 years, but the census is drawn every 10 years. So they won't know you exist for 10 years. Okay. But this thing is very serious. Now, some people don't fill out the census because they are afraid that they're going to be discovered. Like, the people who are the illegals and all of that, that's another show on another night. Okay. But listen, I want you all to know that the United States Census count is actually protected by federal FERPA laws. In other words, you swear that you will not share that information. It goes straight into the census. So it's okay to count your Uncle Oscar them because nobody is going to know it is protected information. Okay, there we are, right there on that one.
Mr. Martin, what's going on in we're here in North Carolina. It's a beautiful night here in North Carolina, but what we're dealing with now is a nationwide thing. We've been talking not only about gerrymandering. Can we tie gerrymandering into voter apathy? People feeling as though there's no need for me to vote.
When I said I was an Aggie first,
mm-hmm.
I'm part school of Jesse Jackson.
All right.
Even though we're proud of Obama, and I was a deputy field organizer on staff with Obama's team,
mm-hmm.
but all of this was cumulative stuff. So, as I mentioned the names earlier, you got Jesse, you got Dan Blue, you got Sherry Beasley now, but apathy, I always go to leadership. I want to make sure I separate something.
Okay.
Position holders.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of good black faces in positions, and other faces too. I'm not sparing anybody. As I told you on the phone, I'm an independent.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have leaders. There's a difference between position holders and leaders.
True.
And then leaders know how to galvanize. Leaders know how to inspire. So there's no apathy when you have good leadership because they're in tune with the people that they're serving or leading. And I yield to Dr. Cornel West when he says you can't lead the people when you don't love the people. And then I go and talk about, you're the scholar on this one, but in the Bible, the thing they talked about most is love. And love is a duty. It's not just words.
Mm-hmm.
So your duty is in love, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's awkward, even when they don't want to hear it. If you love the people, you lead the people, then there's no apathy because you're telling them the truth.
Yeah, well, leading also, leading in the sense of I have followers, and if I have followers, the responsibility that I have, I'll try to ask you this question outside of the Bible aspect. I can ask it like that very easy, but let me do it in. I'm a football coach.
All right.
School football. As the leader of the football team, part of my job is not just to coach them to win the game that we play next week. Part of my responsibility is to teach them or lead them what I know so that one day they can step into my shoes and be the leader. Are you saying that part of the problem with apathy is that we have people that have the title of leaders in the community who really aren't leading this next generation to take their place, but they're just hung up where they are right now?
They are enjoying the perks of the positions.
There you go. That's I don't have my can, but I was going to open that can of worm, but you did it.
and then a different perspective from mental health. Let me go layman so y'all say that could be real.
All right.
And when you follow the term, when you caught up in the position and you start smelling yourself, as the old folks used to say, then the ego kicks in, and those perks create attention deficit disorder in this sense. You want attention all the time. It's insatiable. You're unsatisfiable. So you want to be seen. And I tell folks this: if you really want to still be loving in our community, but still make people accountable, and I'm speaking from a Black perspective right now, but this can go all. When you have a person in that position, and right now while we're having these forums, it took me a while to come up with this, but I said, how can I still make elected officials accountable and appointed positions? Let's not leave them out. They're appointed by these elected people, including judges, as we talked earlier. But when you have, I lost my train of thought because two things came to mind. I'm gonna come back to something. Voter education. I want to make sure when you said as a coach you teach. We keep saying every 4 years, oh, yeah, we want people to register to vote. But if you don't educate them, they don't know why, they don't get inspired. That ties into what you were saying about apathy. We don't know. You can't connect with Ray on his level or her level with Shanae on how this voting thing benefits them. When I say stuff like, when your child went to school today, they got on that school bus. They got on those roads. They ate that lunch that came from the USDA. That bus and the road was from the Department of Transportation. The food stamps came from the USDA. And we can connect and show you how that benefits everybody. Then we can kind of connect that. But the part you asked, when I said I lost that train of thought, refresh my memory there, because I didn't want to. I don't have a pen and paper, so I wanted to make sure I hit the education.
Yeah, well, you answered my questions, and then we talked earlier about the fact that now it's time to vote, and what was it? 12 years ago, people went to the polls to vote, and they said we got to vote for Obama. 4 years ago, people said, "Oh, I got to vote." Well, now people are saying, "I got to go vote because I want to either keep this president in or get this president out." And as we talked earlier, this election is far greater than that one person in the White House.
Absolutely. This election is epic almost, because there is so many things getting ready to change in our system of government, because we have all this civil unrest. You have people that's not even acknowledging the fact that there is systemic racism, that there has been things not only to suppress the vote, but it actually has been legislated to suppress the vote. So what we're doing right now, you're saying about making a connection. I think that people don't understand. They get very upset when they're thinking that the president is the one that does everything. The president is just the executor. He does not make the laws. He can sign them in. He does have some executive power, but he doesn't make the laws. He helps to illustrate them. In other words, to break it down so people will understand them. But laws are made in Congress, and then laws are made and are made in the Senate. What's going on right now? Whether or not your children eat lunch is on a state level. So when we're talking about senators and congressmen, and we're talking about districts, and up north you're talking about boroughs, all of that type of thing does determine whether or not grandma eats.
Right. Whether she
Meals on wheels, baby.
Right. Well, Mr. Morrison, you know, I asked you about the 6-year-old earlier. I'm gonna ask you again something about explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. We talk about the importance of voter education. We talk about the need for voter education. But I'm 23 years old. Where do I get educated about what is voter education? Where do I go? Is it an app on my phone? Is it something? How do I get educated?
2 steps. I tell folks, no matter how they feel about our organizations, because we got this self-hate going on sometimes where we shoot ourselves in the feet. You hear folks saying, well, the NAACP, they do this, they don't do that. Name me an organization that has more data on lynchings, voter education, Get Out the Vote, voter registration projects. Name an organization that has more. In most cases, we can't. A lot of them are complimentary on there. Other piece, Kim and I talked about this. We forget the basics. And I'm so glad you said that part earlier, Bishop, about let's start with the foundation, like building a house. You got to build it on a rock, baby. Board of Elections in North Carolina. Every county, all 100 counties has one. How many people are on that board?
Right.
Can y'all tell me? I'm doing this on purpose just to show we decently are adept at.
What was your question? How many are on the
Board of Elections locally?
Wow. Board of Elections.
It's 3.
Okay.
And in North Carolina, whatever party the governor is a part of, that person becomes, whoever he recommends or nominates for that county, they become the chair. It's not a vote on it. The governor appoints the chair. You heard that word? On elected, but once you're elected, you get power to appoint a whole lot of people.
That's right.
They also have to remember with the democracy or parliamentary procedure, majority rules, but minority must be heard. So you also have a person that represents the minority party, which is usually the Republican Party. Then that third person can either be another Democrat or an independent, or what they call unaffiliated in North Carolina, like myself. So whatever the party of that governor is, pretty much the first 2 positions in the Board of Elections are reflective of, and they're serving at the pleasure of the governor. So what just happened when it comes to power? Now, all the different information we have, we can talk about it all, but until it's in writing, like they used to tell me in the Army, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
That's it.
When you ran for office in Vance County, Bishop, you had to register with whom?
Board of Elections.
Say it again.
Board of Elections.
Yes.
Was there a fee you had to pay?
Board of Elections.
There we go. And if you have a tie with the election, and this is something that's fun, you have a runoff. If the runoff has a tie, how do you determine it? Pulling straws, pulling names out of a hat, it goes back to those fundamentals.
Wow.
That's how it gets when we go there. Because it's by the luck of the draw. They have the fancy language, but they can flip a coin, whatever the Board of Elections wants to determine. You see that power? Now, state of emergency, we've got a lot of floods that just happened. So we're gonna be doing, if it's okay with you all, I'm gonna talk election, but I'm also gonna tie this so that we have education while we talk.
Oh, yeah, because you just educated me on something.
We learn from each other, bro. Each one reach one. All these flash floods that are happening. We're in hurricane season. This is the most hurricanes in a while. You go into a state of emergency in your county before the governor and the president will sign off a declaration of a state of emergency. Who has to sign the paper?
The mayor?
The chair for the county commissioners.
Yep.
That's the power. We just let that go. Now I'm gonna tie this. This is something that's real adamant. Kim, we talked about this one. My own county, beloved Richmond County, produces some of the most professional athletes per capita since the 70s. Any county in the U.S. We're checking on research with that, but that's my hypothesis right now. Every municipality in that county, including the county commissioners, has an at-large system. Now I want y'all to follow me closely with this. If you notice in Charlotte, other folks, the urban areas, the largest cities, they have a district system mix. So you've got a couple of districts and you got a couple of at-large members, then you may have the mayor for city council. For the county level, you may have the chair, but you also got some district members and you have at-large members. When you only have at-large members, that means, say when you were running bishop for the county, you got to spend money to go canvass and meet everybody like you dutifully did door to door. But what it didn't cost them money, it cost them time, which is the same. And it's time consuming. It's work. People don't understand that stuff is work.
Yes.
It's not a lot of people do it for love. But the other power with this whole elections game, I'm gonna give it to you peanut butter and jelly. In this country, economics is the daddy, politics is the mommy. Father time, consistent, but we need it. And it's not a level thing. Mother nature, it can be sunny, raining, hurricane, sunshine, hail, all in 24 hours. So policy changes based on the current climate.
Mhm.
That's why we can. Black lives have always mattered, but some of those folks in power, including that look like us, didn't make it as much a priority as it should be.
And that's
So now when I get to this county commissioners, the chair has to sign off to get the resources and all this type of stuff. So we see how all this stuff is interconnected. So I'm still tying your voter education. But before we can do any of this, you got to be registered. Other than that, you don't matter. So the count, we count you. But the register is just a process so they can get you in there. And then when all these folks love talking about, oh, it's private. Any homeowners? Buy a house, property tax. Buy a car, property tax. I can look your name up and find you. Not in a bad way, but it's just accountability because community, remember the last 5 letters in community are unity. You got to have people getting along. Come is Latin, it means with. Or so you have to interconnect. So we really want to do this thing. Remember, we had to have some kind of structure for us to solve processes for the benefit, hopefully, of the good. In that preamble, it does say to promote the general welfare.
Welfare. That's what it says. Yes. What do we do to? We started off talking about gerrymandering. What do we do about it?
well, there's several things that you can do about it. There's something that, like, for example, I'm going to speak to Gerard and I's community. Our community used to be striving, but it's not, because a lot of the industry has left our community. All right, Richmond County. All right, the same powers that be, and like he said, economics is the ruler in the county because they're the ones who know what is what. So our community is rural. Our community usually has a lot of people who may or may not have exposure to internet, may not have exposure to computers, that type of thing. So what can we do to make a difference? When I discovered that there was possibility that people in remote parts of the community that are actually not registered to vote, the voter registration deadline is October the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was get with a couple of local pastors and some of those business owners. And I said, listen up, can we set up a couple of computers on your porch right here? And most of the pastors or most of the business owners or most of anybody, all it takes 2 or 3 people to be able to get the word out. It's not too late so that people can be represented, but you've got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to set up situation. And like Brother Gerard was talking about, it's grassroots. Mm-hmm. Your uncle lived down the street. Your cousin Nene lived around the corner. Enough of us together can make a difference in this business. Enough of us together can make a difference.
Mr. Morrison?
Yeah.
Yeah. What can we do to change gerrymandering? What do we do to change the way of?
Well, a couple of things with that. And I'm not trying to splice words. I'm just a stickler on them because they mean so much. Mm-hmm. I'm not a person that likes change. I like improvement. If we're not going to improve the conditions, leave it alone. Because we love saying, even I worked with Obama's campaign behind the scenes, I was like, ooh, I don't want change. I want improvement. Because we can put lipstick on a pig and we still got the pig.
Blank.
And good one. And then but in that spirit of what I think you're going with it, that part about remember, the gerrymandering is mapping where people are located in order to get the vote for that area, the representative government, so allegedly. Mm-hmm. But of course, and I want to say with this too, we keep talking about Republicans and Trump and the other part. Democrats did the same thing in the 80s.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Every part. And mm-hmm. all of them want an edge. So when you say, what do? How do we fairly get an edge? Mm-hmm. So we go for fairness, we educate a populace, and as you were saying in there, I'm going to tell you I was an agribusiness major. One thing I looked at is no matter what you're doing in this type of economy and government, the productivity and education shift the production curve in a society.
Right.
Educating that individual, you become more productive because you can do more things because you know more things. With technology, basically an engineer, all they do is they either create from scratch or they design or they make it smaller or faster. So remember those big beta tapes, the big VHS tapes we had? Now you got an SD card that can do 10 of those at 128 gigs and a little handheld camcorder. CD versus the big album, look at what happened. And now I'm gonna parallel that to China and India. Those are intellectual economies, but all they did was they did more by investing in their people. So investing in their people for the awareness, investing in the people, believe it or not, right now, the public instruction, well, Department of Public Instruction has some, and the General Assembly has some legislation about modifying basically American civics and how the kids learn about government. If you notice, Trump spoke up on some of that because it's also nationally done. Because remember, when I gotta say this, think tanks. So with the gerrymandering, with the educating the people, informing the people, most policy is not written by these populations. It's written by think tanks. So when you see American Enterprise Institute, people be like, oh, that sounds fancy. That's the Chamber of Commerce.
Wow.
Right now, all this month, you have the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. You can go in there right now and register free. They got a workshop on everything we can think of right now, from economic, politics, education.
That's right.
Everything. We have so much that exists already. So I'm saying all that to bring it to this, Red. If we just study what we know, and growing up, I like geometry. A lot of people hated that class.
I love it. I like
geometry because you use your giving. Most people want to go recreate the wheel. I don't.
That's true. Yes.
Master your system now. As we stated earlier, Bishop, I said, how many people, when they talk about their bored, I'm never bored. I can't even stand when people say that. Go hang out in a courthouse one day. You want to see a reality show? And watch how much power that DA and that judge have.
That's right.
Watch how the system works. And when you see there, and again, and if something happens in that election, the governor appoints that judge and that DA. All right. So, and the person I worked with, Hampton, when he ran, he was the general counsel. And before the governor even touches it, he's got a general counsel, an appointed position. These boards and commissions we have in every city, still in the spirit of what you asked. From dealing with the rest home where grandma and granddaddy are, to even with the school system, textbooks. You get input on there because they got an advisory commission for textbooks. But we just got to go request it. And we sit and watch on the TV and get the entertainment piece, but you have to pull the layers back. And all you do for that one is you go to your city manager or your county manager. There's a liaison for every board and commission. And you fill out a one-page document, basically about your bio. You get 2 people on that council to vote for you, which is going to happen because they want local representation. If you'd be shocked when you go to these local boards and commissions, how many people aren't on there or the same people that keep repeating themselves for 20 years.
That's right.
The same person on there for 20 years. Why do you wonder why things look the same now that they did 30 years ago?
Well, you know, you said that this is interesting because I sat on the Human Relations Commission.
There we go. Housing.
And I loved it, except for the fact that it was just spinning wheels in mud. We couldn't get anything, you know. Then they wanted to schedule the meetings for 1 o'clock on a Thursday. And I'm saying we work, you know.
That's right.
But
and elaborate on that one, because even that's a systemic issue. So elaborate, because
I could, but I'm gonna be nice tonight.
Oh yeah. And what were the demographics on that board?
Why are you asking me a question you already know?
So the public.
And what was amazing was the moment I couldn't do it because of the work schedule. They wanted to plan the meetings early afternoon where some of us were at home doing nothing. The moment that I was voted in as the chairman of that commission, all of a sudden now it pops up that my tenure had ran out.
Oh,
was no longer,
razzle dazzle.
huh?
I call it razzle dazzle when they go behind the scenes. You notice they had a meeting before you had the real meeting. They had another meeting at the country club.
Absolutely.
While they were playing bridge and drinking tea.
Mm-hmm. And what they were on the golf course. I don't know if they were on the ones you be on, though, Bishop. But I don't know about all of that. But then
that too. We got NASCAR.
Amen. But you know what? That is so true. You're bringing out into the light some things that really are happening on the local level. And how can we make a difference until we absolutely know? But I wanted to go back to something that you have brought out about using what you already have. We are inundated with information, but we're not using what we have. I was online today, just checking out my Facebook information. And then over to the side, it says not registered to vote. Simply click right here. So the opportunities are everywhere. So even to the gamers, take a minute to come off your game long enough to click over here 5 minutes and register to vote.
Well, what about those that are registered to vote? But like Mr. Morrison was saying, we don't know that about these other areas in our community that we can work or serve or hold people accountable, such as your commissions, your boards, your park and recreation commissions, your human relations commissions, things like that. Because I'm sure a lot of people are registered to vote. Some are registered to vote and just don't vote. Because my prayer is, God, please, I'm praying that God, please don't let it rain November 3rd.
And why don't you elaborate why on that one? What happens with human behavior then?
Child, I ain't going out to child. My vote don't count, child. I get them next time.
I just got my hairdo did.
Yeah, I just got my hair did.
Doing Corona.
Right.
And how's Corona going to impact that?
Right. Because some people don't even think it's real. Some people don't think it's real, or some people they go from one end to the other. That's the problem we have in the country right now, is the polarization, because we either are or we aren't, and nobody seems to want to come together and reason together. And like you were talking about what's going on right now, Justice Ginsburg passing, you guys better heads up on that one. Yeah. Because you've got the outgoing president saying that he's wanting to appoint this seat when you got an election coming up in less than 50 days, when that should be the right of the incoming president. And if you'll go back and let history check itself, Obama was not given the opportunity to appoint the justice. And it was February of the year. His term was going to end in November, and he was not given the opportunity. He was fought all kind of ways to appoint that other justice. You have already pointed out about the district attorneys and the judges and all of this. What I'm going to say once again, what we have always said: get your head out the sand, or don't say nothing November the 4th. Okay. That's what we have right now.
Mr. Martin, is there a correlation between, and I've never asked this question, I haven't even thought about it until just now, listening to you guys talk. Is there a correlation between gerrymandering and the Electoral College?
Good question.
In this spirit, gerrymandering again produces districts. Mm-hmm. And with the districts, think about it. How many electoral votes do we have for North Carolina?
12.
And why?
I just looked at the map before we came on the show.
12. And the reason what determines the number of electoral votes we have?
Population,
census.
Yes.
And the number of congressional districts that you have. So the House of Reps determine that. Just right. Like if there's a tie for this election with Biden and Trump, so you got equal electoral college numbers. Who determines who goes in there?
Is it the Supreme Court?
Most people think that, but actually, House of Reps take a vote.
Oh, okay.
You got it? So because they're supposed to be representative government in there.
Gotcha.
The reason that
Teaching me tonight, because I really thought it was the Supreme Court.
Because now if there's some disparities or violation of law, that's when Supreme Court comes in there.
Gotcha.
Something key too. We don't look at the Secretary of State. Remember, when the election happened in Georgia with that governor, his first position was Secretary of State. Because who controls where the corporations get registered, when you want to get a business license?
Right.
Who controls as far as the voter piece in there? Secretary of State. And you see all this stuff comes together in here. Now, with that gerrymandering, it's an important word. I don't want to relegate the importance of it. But again, that part happens on the front end. That's to help you get an edge for the election.
Right.
That's the practicality of it all. Now, with the Electoral College, that's after the voters came in. And even though we say, I forgot what that term is called, but when the Electoral College, so each party gets 12 Electoral College votes, or whatever the number of House of Reps for that state. And then, because folks will be like, well, this way this process works, the Electoral College determines. Each party gets that number. Now, if that party's candidate got the majority of the votes for that state, then the Electoral College reps are supposed to vote, and all their votes go for that party.
Yes, because some states, that's why they're considered battleground, because it's all whoever gets the most popular votes at that time on the districts or whatever, then that particular state's electoral votes, even if there was somebody in opposition, all of them are scooped up together and goes towards the candidate that wins. And so, and each state has the right to determine, their sovereign on determining their disposition of their electoral votes. So when you're talking about gerrymandering, even though you're saying, okay, here's a word we had never heard of, but they knew. They knew. And now that we know. And so how can you break this down? Because we're seeing a lot of things, and you almost have to have a college degree to understand some of the things that we've said tonight. But we really have said something very simplistic. Fill out the census if you want to be counted. Register to vote if you want to be counted, okay? Your vote should not just be national. Your vote needs to be local. Many, like for example, the right to educate our children, that is a state right. You're going to be talking about federal rights, and you're going to be talking about state rights. You got a problem with the way public school system is run, then you need to check with your state representatives, okay?
Yeah, problem is who is it? I don't. Now, this is me talking now. I hate to use the term devil's advocate, but y'all know what I mean when I say that. I don't know who my state rep is. You talking about school? Who serves on the board of education for my district? I don't know. Who's my city councilman? I don't know. Who's my county commissioner? I don't know. We know who the president is. We may know who the Senate majority leader is. Most people don't know that. Most people don't know who Chuck Schumer is. Most people don't know who Nancy Pelosi is. Most people have no idea who Mitch McConnell is. And most people don't know who but we know the president. We may know our local mayor, but it's who is the DA in your city?
There's somebody who knows everything. And
I'm saying until we get everybody knowing these people, then our job isn't done.
Then this is what I was getting ready to tell you, Bishop.
He looked up like he's ready.
No, I was going to tell you, Google it.
No, I was saying Mr. Morrison jumped up like he was getting ready to jump out the screen when I said.
But what happened is, On the chat box, as you're talking, I'm putting sources up. So when you said, how do I know who it is for the state rep? Now, believe it or not, this I'll start from the top. If you put whitehouse.gov in,
Right.
at the end, if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, it's going to show it by state, then it's by county. That's going to have everything in America as far as the government structure, appointed, and even the native, because we're slipping on the Native Americans. You got a Bureau of Indian Affairs in North Carolina. And that's appointed for the state is by the governor. Now, I also put things in here. I put a link, the last one, about voter lookup. So when you're talking on Sundays, and I go to Shaquille O'Neal for this. I saw this morning. I was glad to see with the NBA, with the bubble and the way the stances they've been taking, so we applaud them. And we got to encourage our folks there. But he's got a thing called Who's Your Starting Five? Starting five, he's talking about who are the 5 people you're making sure you're going to that are registered to vote and that you're going to vote together. So everybody is their starting form and takes them with them.
Kevin Hart just did an hour-long situation 2 nights ago that was targeted towards the young voters, are 18 to 35, and he had all of Hollywood and everybody, the rappers and everybody, and they basically what they were saying is what we're saying. We ain't gonna tell you who to vote for, but we are going to tell you to vote. So
because you said something earlier, Mr. Morrison, about we need to hold you touched on it, that we need to start holding these people accountable. Well, unless I know who to hold accountable and how to get in touch with how to hold them accountable, they get away with, they can sit in office for 30 and 40 years and do nothing because all I'm doing is sitting back complaining about things, but I don't even know who's in office. I don't even know the chain of command, who to get in touch with. So this is very important.
Yeah. And you just triggered, because my train of thought came back. What I looked for years doing was I kept saying, how do I make my Black elected officials and other folks in leadership, politically in government, accountable, yet not look like I'm selling them out. I mean, being a sellout or just attacking them because they're Black and then letting the non-Black ones run free. So I said, what's the question I can ask that's objective? So it came up with, you stroke them when you're at one of these political forums, or you can call in on the radio, the local forums, on the internet. You say, so Congressperson, Mayor, DA X, I applaud that you've been in this position for 20 years, but especially the legislative side, the city council reps, the county commissioners. Then you say, for example, Commissioner Davis, will you please list the legislation that you personally sponsored this most recent term? Not that you co-sponsored, that you personally sponsored. Because what happens is when you're doing this legislation, a lot of people get in there and tag on it as a co-sponsor. But when you're sponsoring, that means you're leading and you're doing something. We drive by these neighborhoods that we can tell the disparities. We act like they don't exist. Right. They drive through them to get to the city council. Like I'm right here in Greensboro right now. Charlotte on Beatty's-Ford. They drive down Beatty's-Ford to get to city council and council commissioners meeting and county commissioners meetings in Charlotte. They drive down Martin Luther King right here. Wilmington does it. Raleigh does it. Same thing. We know this stuff exists. We do know where stuff is because we can find what we want, because these cell phones we got to do Google if we want. But now the other part is, how do we tap into that part when you talk about apathy? Where's that leadership to motivate and show me why it's important? Kids want adults to give them, or parents to give them direction, even when they buck us. But at the end of the day, they respect and they want some guidance. Really, they screaming out for help. The reason that adolescent stage is so dynamic is because you're told that to act like an adult, but then you're constantly reminded that you're a child. So look at that tug of war. So it's like speed up, but slow back down. And my oldest son's maternal grandmother said that. I got to give her credit, or Cassie Rush. I got to give credit. But I was looking at something simple as that. So on one side, we're saying, get out there, kids, go do this. I can't stand when people say, and I learned this from a Black Republican. We love saying, well, the kids of the day. No, every generation says that same stuff. The kids of the day act that way because who are their teachers? Mm-hmm. And when we're going to own that, we got to talk real with each other. Mm-hmm. The part about finding information, you got to be hungry. Start taking some phones, start taking some stuff. But we scared. We're busy trying to make them our friends instead of our progeny for progress. Mm-hmm. And even our friends, how many people learned and were shocked that when Hillary Clinton ran against Obama, who was voting, how many fights were it? Intensive discussions were had at the dinner table. Mm-hmm. When our Hispanic brothers, our brown brothers, remember when Hillary ran during that primary against Obama in New York, 70% of the Puerto Rican vote did not go to Obama. The amigos, it went to Hillary.
That's true.
And ones, how many of us, and you said it, Bill Clinton, the first Black president, because he can play a saxophone, go on the Arsenio Hall show. Then who did the biggest thing on these maximizing the minimums when it came to prison terms? Then we see it. Mm-hmm. So we got to study this. Honestly, we're in an information age, Bishop. There's no excuse not to know anymore.
Right.
And I tell folks, ignorance is the only sin. When I was a kid, my mom worked with Dudley Products 40 years. But Fuller was one of the richest Black men in America. He had a saying that they would say, ignorance is the only sin. First, it is pleasing. Then it grows easy. Then delightful. Then frequent. Then the man is ruined, never to repent. Ignorance is the only sin.
Wow.
And my personal philosophy, I told them the main impetus for starting this Coltrane Festival was I got tired of doing campaigns, community work, and watching how comfortable people were at FMAC. Frequent, massive, arrogant, comfortable ignorance. Don't know, don't want to know. You don't want to join NAACP, but then you want to call Gerard, who's struggling himself, to come help you out when you ain't want to listen to go to these meetings. You didn't want to drive up and down the road in the middle of the night to go to the Congressional Black Caucus. So now I tell folks, yeah, you got to pay a consultant fee now because all that sacrifice I did while you were drinking 40s and talking to shorties, I had to do some work too. So you got to pay. You got to go pay this white lawyer. So now you got to pay us too.
That's right.
And we got to be that same way with our Black lawyers, our Black elected officials, our Black businesses. We talk all this stuff we want. We talked about civil rights, and I want to go on not on a detour, but just in a rest area for a minute, Kim and Bishop. Can we talk about civil rights?
All right.
We need to have our economics together.
Yeah.
And look at, if you put just the Black folks alone in America, 13% of the population, that would be over $1.3 trillion that we generate. Now I'm gonna be uncomfortable, but I'm man enough to do it. If women alone in our communities, because in our household, even though men make the most money, who makes the purchasing decisions?
That's right.
2% of them are our beloved sisters. Mm-hmm. But now if we change, and I got this from Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, we change from whom we buy, when we buy, and what we buy. Do we need an outfit for every event? I had a cousin that stated, one good thing about this Corona, I don't have to buy all of these outfits for these events because there ain't no reason to go. And how much money have they saved?
Mm-hmm. Tremendous.
Say again.
A tremendous amount. They have saved a tremendous amount. And with us not being in the marketplace, you see how many of these mom and pop businesses are going out of business because they don't have that that our community dollar. We need to know the power that we have once we stop fighting one another, is try to see some way we can benefit in this thing.
And if you notice in here, you didn't hear me say a word about what we don't do at the other ones when we go. I purposely say, if you show a positive example of what can work, people follow it.
That's right.
See, like you were talking about celebrities and earlier, people doing it. Why did diamonds? I've been to South Africa and Zimbabwe. Diamonds ain't nothing but a rock. Mm-hmm. Piece of coal. But they put it on celebrities' hands, and that's how they marketed it, because we want to be. These reality shows ain't even reality.
Right.
Kim Kardashian started making money on a sex video. Mm-hmm. My dad's a lawyer, and she's gonna get a law degree. She helped that sister get out of jail, all that stuff. So I tell folks, not going religious, but I joke with some folks and say, Out of all the disciples that Jesus had, which one was the perfect one? You know, the one that made no mistakes, didn't do anything wrong. Which one was it? Come on, everybody knows. But I do that because, you know, the real answer is there wasn't one. We judging everybody else, tearing each other down, when let's just support each other in there with knowledge, with books. How many books do we have? When you watch sometimes on TV now with Corona, when people are interviewing, how many of us got books in the background? A reading person is a ruling person.
That's right.
So why we ain't read? But we are. But now I learned we have to switch it around. We read text. We read all kinds of other stuff. And then I said, now, how do we challenge this energy? How do we push it? How do we motivate it? How we give it? So now I said we have to give it incentive. I got to meet Ambassador James Joseph, the ambassador to South Africa, while Bill Clinton and Mandela were both president, is right here in North Carolina. He was teaching at Duke. I went and met him. When Andrew Young, I want to do ambassadorship down the road. When Andrew Young came, he introduced him. But he told me he was also the chair for the Louisiana Recovery Commission after Katrina. They had to get that brother here to keep peace in Louisiana because he's so talented. But he said in the 60s and 70s, during civil rights, he said we could use moral suasion. He said now we have to use self-interest. So you have to motivate the people from that apathy you're talking about to get out to vote, to learn, to seek this stuff. They got to feel empowered. And all these folks that come around to get our vote, they always want our vote. No, I'm a Don King fan. You negotiate, not negotiate. What's going to benefit my Negro Black community? So now, yeah, I'm going to vote for you, but I want to be on that board of commission. When you get in there, you're going to approve me for that vote on that board and that commission. ABC board, since we want, let's be uncomfortable for a minute. All the alcohol we purchasing, like a local ABC board, because that person determines what alcohol you get. They get a salary, well, not a salary, but they get a stipend for coming to the meeting every month. Oh, and that's the other part. I forgot the incentive. A lot of these boards and commissions, you get mileage to go there. You get to go to conferences, you get to meet new people, you get to travel. Look at all these incentives in there, but it's for the greater good. But make sure when these folks are traveling, that they come home and give a report from that conference. Because look at how we let our mayors and elected officials skate. They ain't told us nothing. You got the same stuff. And look at your own neighborhoods. It starts right there. Why do things look the same as they did 30 years ago? Because we allow it. That's the bottom line. And then we're hard on our brothers. Right now I'm concerned because Black males' suicide rate has doubled in the last 15 years.
That's true.
But watch this. I'm going to just quiz you all for a minute. Work with me. It's okay to be wrong. What are the 3 reasons most Black males are in juvenile detention centers right now? What would you say? What crimes have they violated?
Well, you would assume number one, you assume that it's some type of assault, drugs, assault.
That's 1. That's 2. 3. What's the 3rd?
And child support. Yes.
Even though it's civil and it's wrong that they have people.
I'm just throwing a crime.
That is true. They go to jail. Yeah.
Now, and that child support is actually tied to this one. I was just saying that brothers expressing some love. Sisters too. They ain't dealing with themselves. But now, you know what it is? The biggest reason they're locked up is for protecting a woman. A stepdad from beating on their mama. Somebody trying to molest their little sister. Somebody disrespecting their girlfriend. Somebody disrespecting their sister, mama, auntie, grandma, saying something wrong. They are locked up for being men, but we bash these same cats. And we don't understand that's that raw energy and talent that we have just stifled the manhood from that rites of passage when these same little kings were trying to just be themselves and they protecting stuff when everybody else was scared to.
Wow.
But we ain't there for them. So, yes, I talk about the electing piece, the gerrymandering, the other piece, but again, we got to tie this to how we live.
Right.
Ultimately, this is a social science. And scientific, does get results. You can measure it. That's mainly what it means. But that social human behavior you can't control, but you can influence and you can modify. HR and managers, what do? You can't change people, but you can modify behavior by giving them incentive, be it salary, be it trips, be it benefits. So now how do we take that same mindset in the school system, you retired teacher. How do we do this? How do we incentivize folks? Because we're in a capitalistic society, so while we shop, then we have to use incentive. And sometimes it's just attention. They like to be seen. You see people interviewed. They can Kim, I applaud you already, my sister, because I did not one time tonight see you do this right here. You ever see people talking, and by the time they're doing stuff, they got to take all that hair that's not theirs and go like this. You can't even understand what they're saying. Or they're doing like this the whole time we're talking. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And be like, Gerard, I want you to talk about these brothers with the sagging pants. No, I'm not talking about that. By that time, you're already defiant. What I'm going to do is say things that raise your intellect. Then you'll pick up your pants by my example. So I don't have to talk about it. I ain't gonna question Ray about showing his butt, literally. Because we come from a flamboyant culture. Why do we wear that gold? That flamingo bird. The gold, I mean the silk and the ornamentation. We're flamboyant people. We're creatively expressive. We don't have to restrain that. I was just looking at Soul Train today. When the last time y'all seen Soul Train? Man, who can do what we do? So we got to stop bashing ourselves and give ourselves credit.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to get into all that, but you got
to
get wound up.
We've been on over an hour. Time definitely flies when we're having fun, and our time just shot past. We, as always, whenever we run into some technical glitches and things in the beginning, it seems like it's a powerful show, and the information that we talked about is so important and so vital, especially now because people, with the passing of Justice Ginsburg, people's minds are starting to think, okay, what's getting ready to happen? Listen, my advice, educate yourself. I was just talking to a friend of mine today, and I kept encouraging him, and he listened. He signed up for an Audible account. I said, listen, read through audio books, read through, we were talking about some books that we were reading. I said, you can read at the gym. How do you read at the gym? I said, audio book. I'm working out and listening to a book at the same time.
There we go.
About enlightening yourself, and that's important. And I definitely thank you. You like to have anything to say on the way out, Mr. Morrison?
Yes, I was trying to pull up some data. You're thinking alike in there. First of all, are y'all familiar with the term brain drain?
No, sir. I haven't heard of that.
Every area, after we educate our kids, where do they go? After they finish that K through 12, a lot of them go in other places.
Right.
So, and after they go to those other places and learn this stuff, after that we poured out and paid our tax dollars for, sacrificed to go to these football games, to these spelling bees, to these debutante balls and cotillions, to these church services and vacation Bible school. Mm-hmm. What incentive do we give for them to bring some of that skills set back? And when they do come, how many of us listen to them? Because one of the most frustrating things for me, Bishop, was a lot of my verbal altercations weren't just with white folks. Right after that, it was with older black males, because after we learn this stuff, then you don't want to hear it when I get back. But I tell them, you poured this into me, but now you don't want to hear it when I come back to share. Mm-hmm. So don't do that, because you frustrate the cats that were doing that. And then the community suffers, because you got to do constant improvement. That's why they have quality control with even the pharmaceuticals and all that type of stuff. You have to have constant growth. Our black-owned businesses, our entities, what's the succession plan? These folks that run for office, they stay in there, but who do they groom? I had a guy, and I want to make sure I give him credit, the late, great Herman C. Giss, Senior from Greensboro. Mm-hmm. And he taught me. I've never taken, can you tell? I've never taken a political science class in my life. Are you shocked? He taught me practical application dealing with this. Something else too, while we have these nice, good folks coming through, getting us to register to vote from the Democrat and the Republican Party. They're doing these databases. They're not from here. And it's good. They're doing the work. But the people that hold these positions in these parties, when are they checking the databases? When are they updating? We got folks, if you didn't vote since Obama, guess what? You're not in the database anymore. So you got to register. Now, this early vote, we got to get you to register, because you can register and vote the same day. You say that part about how do we know? I mean, how we know? You said it part of it earlier, Bishop, when you ran. We have these organizations that do sheets. for getting people elected. You got to get that endorsement. But how we get in there, and too many times you got to pay membership in these organizations. So that's why I say locally, online right now, all this Zoom and all this, we can have free forums. We can have people to do this. All this good Wi-Fi we got. Rural areas need more Wi-Fi, but we can get it. But that brain drain is what happens when you educate people to do things. They go abroad, then they never come back. So that just drained all the brain and the intellectual skill set that you poured into. Now you're not getting a return on your investment.
And do we need to, and I was trying to end it, but it seemed like, do we need to, that thin line between educating myself and being frustrated? There's a thin line. The reason why I'm asking is you look at the comment below. Ms. Carter says, McConnell stated 49 minutes ago that he was going to go ahead. He said, as Minister Kim said, when President Obama was in office,
right,
in February, that there should not be a judge appointed during an election year because the people should decide who that judge is by deciding who the president. Now, less than 50 days, you have a double standard. You said we're gonna throw him in there. Of course, he's gonna say that. Anybody would, I mean, of course.
Thank you. Now, man, you get me ready. I'm practical, y'all. Get me revved up. Native Americans taught us years ago. Watch this statement. Beware of pale face. He's speaking with forked tongue.
Right.
Right.
So while and now something that was real key, remember, Trump's been watching her health.
Oh, yeah.
You recall last week, they were like, why is Trump putting out a list of judges that he would like to have in there? Why is he doing it so early in the election hadn't come? This was already brewing.
Already.
Yeah.
We think we get information. They get a report every day. There are over 40 people that have a security clearance that's higher than the president's. They know information and 3 of them are brothers. Okay, so we got information now, but I'm not shocked at this. All I say is get your guts together, because just like with Democratic Party, I said this part when we were talking earlier. I think that was, I don't know if that was you or Kim, Maria. When Obama first got elected, we had a majority of Democrats in the House and a majority of Democrats in the Senate. Those 2 years, they spent bickering over pettiness instead of getting legislation pushed. If you go ahead and get the legislation pushed, then you can tweak it later. You can always amend it. And that's what's going to be perfect because it's done by humans.
Right.
When this happens, now, one thing you got to give them, and then I told you this, I go to both meetings as an independent. 2 months after I was working with Obama's campaign, some of the cats in there knew I worked with it. But the Republican Party meeting, they had already had their plans with the think tanks, and the Priebus was the chair. He said, with Obama, when he wins, he said, any legislation that they get through, we're going to defund it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to denounce it first, then defund it if it does pass. And by that, you're tying it up. It doesn't have any resources. He said, third, we're going to make sure, wait for it, we get all the judges' judicial appointments in office, because the judicial branch historically has never let us down. While we were arguing about,
here's my question to you. You quiz me, I'm gonna quiz you. How many judges has Trump appointed since he's been in office?
over 110 federal judges.
Any other U.S. president.
And a lot of
problems
never had judicial experience.
And here's the problem that I see in this country, and why I really respect that term that you use and that flag that you fly under as being an independent. This two-party system is one of the things that just makes me pull what little hair I have out. Here's why. I'm a football fan, big football fan. You know what team I root for?
Go ahead, Philly.
A diehard Eagle fan. I can't stand the Dallas Cowboys. Now watch this. Let me draw the analogy. If the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys commits a felony, I'm going to look at him and say, you know what? I knew it. He plays for Dallas. They should kick him off the team. He should not be allowed to be in the league for what he did. Let the Philadelphia quarterback do the same thing. You know what my response is going to be? As long as he play Sunday, man, it was y'all looking at him wrong. Because I'm rooting not for the individual or the action, I'm rooting for the team. We look at what McConnell. Say that again.
In your interest.
In my interest.
Mhm.
Of course, those that support McConnell is going to agree with him because they're looking out for their interests and the team. We need more independent referees who say, I'm not rooting for a particular team. I'm rooting for what's right.
Mhm.
And until we get people that stand up and say, I'm not here to take sides, I'm just here to vote and take over, we're going to keep going through this. And we're going to keep going through the same, because I don't know whether you said it, Mr. Morrison, I think you may have said it, the same thing that we're accusing the Republicans of doing, Democrats are doing the same thing and would do the same thing.
I got one for you right now. Wisconsin Board of Elections voted yesterday to take Kanye West off the ballot. Also, they voted to take the person from the Green Party off the ballot. The Board of Elections, right? Ones that people really never see them. Now, because of them, they've got money. They already have lawsuits filed because of the way it was done. So that's the other part. In addition to the policy that we have, you got to have case law. Where's our Thurgood Marshall for our time? Benjamin Crump's doing this thing and tying some of these people together. Benjamin Crump grew up in Lumberton, North Carolina, small town. Tupac's mom, Lumberton, North Carolina. Luther Vandross, Bennettsville, South Carolina. Marion Wright Elderman, Children's Defense Fund, Bennettsville, South Carolina. Folks doing their thing with what they have. And that's when I get into we don't use this name much, but Booker T. Washington. Dip your bucket where you are.
Yeah.
And this part about
the information that is available already, because we're up there talking about recreating the wheel. The problem is that we have not learned how to effectively wield the sword that we have already in our hand. It's about information. It's about voting this time, but at least be informed about it. Okay? At least make sure it's going to work for you, because everybody else does. And don't be mad just because they do. Now is the time to let your voice be heard.
Yeah, and even with this, people got these stimulus checks. Again, let's go to incentive. All of a sudden, when COVID came, and now we're hearing other stuff after the interviews that Trump knew and all this stuff. But when these stimulus checks came, remember, $600 as a 40-hour work week means how much hourly? $15. The same thing people have been asking for how many decades?
Well, we didn't mention the 7 states that didn't adopt it. Most of the states did go with the increase of the minimum wage, but hello, once again, with your southern states that did not adopt it. North Carolina did not adopt it. South Carolina did not adopt it. All you have to do is Google it. Google knows everything. And that's the point that I wanted to make, even about your local officials. Google knows everything.
Do you think another package is going to come out just in time before the election?
It's always going to have to look like a savior. He's going to swoop in, and then people are going to think, okay, they greased my pocket. He gets my vote. Once again, it's not a new thing. You see it getting ready.
We can talk. We can put some.
Well, go. Oh, my fault. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out, history professor, Wilmington, 1898, and then Ben Chaver's Wilmington 10. The massacre of 1898 in Wilmington, a town that was 65% black, brothers owned ships and sisters, two black-owned newspapers, economically thriving, dealing with international trade because the ship is right there on the coast, so they could go other places.
That is correct.
But that was used, and watch now when you watch all these folks carrying these guns and weapons.
Mm-hmm.
There was something called the Secret Nine, and what they did, it was trumped up a fake issue about a white congressman's wife getting raped by some blacks in Wilmington. Mm-hmm. Same place, a lot of these white business folks and white elected officials would come find sisters sleeping with him, but that paper called him out because he had guts, freedom mentality. Those same folks Carolina Power and Light, bought by Duke Energy.
Mhm.
Raleigh News and Observer, Josephus Daniels was one of these folks here. So you see how these lies get caught, just like with all this stuff that was going on about the impeachment. Remember, what they do is they hide evidence. Thing that happened with Trayvon Martin. Remember, it was the evidence. That same dude, less than 3 months later, or 6 months later, was having problems with his girlfriend. What did he do? He was a judge's son. He went and broke the evidence on that Apple computer. Right now, good thing about this stuff that's happened, I mean, things that happen with these black cops and killing our black folks, if we didn't have this evidence, and even with the video, we're still being victimized, and folks still saying, we ain't gonna believe you, we're gonna believe our lying eyes over you. We are too nice to some of these folks that mistreat us. We got to have some better accountability. I read earlier that part where you say, yes, we want those right and those independent folks. I applaud if we can do it, but I that moral piece, I got a friend that's a lawyer. He taught me early on. He said, man, when I go in there, it's not about what's right. I have to argue what's legal. So remember,
Right.
who wrote
That
these laws, these legal laws? These people who are supposed to have foresight, but they're not perfect. And that's why we should run. The other piece, when you get in these smaller boards and commissions, it's a microcosm of what's going on. You're going to find out what's going on. Planning and zoning, you're going to find out what's about to get built because they got to change zone. You can have all the money you want. If you're in the right zone, it can't be built.
That's right.
That is correct.
All these little things matter.
Mm-hmm.
But
That is correct.
we got to make sure we connect this as leaders. And earlier, we don't always need a college degree with it. We just got to have some concern.
That's right.
Be willing to teach.
Right.
Let's raise the bar on our conversations. Let's just stop talking about gossip and petty stuff. Because we got real stuff to live. Literally, our life is at stake because people are dying.
That's right.
And we stop. And the folks that don't believe COVID, go talk to a funeral home. Every funeral home in America is making more money now than they did in the last 2 years. The same
Absolutely.
people are dying to get to them. Cemetery, talk to the cats in there. Then we started saying, what are essential positions? So we think we walk around here thinking how we're important. When this COVID came and this crisis come, these fires right now, what's important right there? Do these clothes and jewelry and all this other stuff, does that really matter when a crisis comes?
Mm-mm.
And that's why I'm studying logistics. I was like, I know I got to get a master's, but I was like, policy, all that depends. But I know when a hurricane came to Puerto Rico, all they care about is, can you get me some water? Can you get me some medicine for my elderly? Can you get me some transportation? So I said, that's what I need, transportation and logistics. And now let's look locally. Why do the roads look different in our community than other places? These smooth roads, these potholes, they're messing up our hoopies.
Mm-hmm.
Get them fixed. See the cats in there. A lot of times we go into lawyers when you're elected officials. These Congress folks are getting paid over $130,000. And I'm glad you. Whenever there's a federal issue, you go to the federal elected officials, because when they contact an issue with an agency, say a veteran, you got an issue, or Social Security Administration, Department of Transportation. When a congressperson contacts that agency, they have to respond in less than 72 hours. When the president contacts them, they have to respond in 24 hours. When a citizen, you'll see policy like, 30-day turnaround, 60-day turnaround. See the power? That's your elected official that's supposed to be representing you going to do the work. With the state, there's a state issue. And all these companies who are price gouging right now and getting over, call the attorney general on them, get it documented. Recall years ago, you used to be able to get your business license in your respective county. There was corruption going on. Now you have to get it through the state. And the name goes in a database. It's going to say what that company's been doing based on the complaints. We can complain to each other, but we ain't got the guts to complain. It's 800 numbers. When you get in a car wreck, or right now you get mistreated by the insurance company, the double billing, you call the insurance commission. Coincidentally, the chair for the Democratic Party is from Hamlet, Wayne Goodwin. He's running for insurance commissioner. He's been there before in there, but we call these places, it's free. Stop wasting our money and paying twice. Our taxes already paid for this stuff. Make these people go to work. Also check your unclaimed property. A lot of folks that have passed, go to the Department of Treasury, every state that you ever lived in, and there's unclaimed property, and you'd be shocked how much money is sitting there from bonds, accounts, deposits you make to the utility company. You better go get your money. But you notice all this stuff. You notice Rev still tying it together with your apathy, with your gerrymandering, with your knowing about it. give real life issues and show how it can be solved using that same system that's using us.
There's in my closing, I'm going to get us out of here because we've been on here forever. I was just talking to a young man today, a friend of mine today. We were talking about, he showed me a video of a couple of Mormons was talking to an African-American gentleman, and I don't know what we are now, African-American, black, whatever, we just entertain. But the young man said to the Mormons, "Oh yeah, I've read your book. I read the book," and he pulled up one of the scriptures in the book that basically said that how God cursed blacks because of their iniquity. And since I did write it down because I went and read it, and I told my friend, I said, you know what? There's something powerful about an educated man. And so tonight, what we tried to do is educate everyone. And that's why I'm excited about tonight, because I learned some things tonight. I learned some things. There's an old saying that I love that says, every man is my superior, and that I may learn from him. And I learned some things tonight. Well, guys, I want to thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. I do, with the hour is far spent, and I just appreciate you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and to sit with those that are watching tonight. I thank you so much for taking, I don't take it lightly that you guys have tuned in and watching. I don't take it lightly that you guys came and sat with us tonight. And I appreciate you again, Mr. Morrison. Everything you said tonight was so powerful and so informative. And I'm so grateful that you have enlightened us. Minister Kim, as always, you keep us excited and motivated. And just want to say thank you again tonight, guys. Storming and raining, so I guess we just keep glitching, but we'll get it together soon. But thank you again. Have a great evening tonight, and hopefully we can get you back on here without all these hesitation, Mr. Morrison. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You're welcome and you're worthy. And remember, this rain is liquid sunshine. It's a sign of new beginnings.
All right,
baby. In the words of Sam Cooke.
All right, I like that. All right, guys. Good night.
Oh, and I forgot to do my own plug. October 3rd.
Go ahead. Let me
Coltrane Music Edutainment.
Let me get you.
Y'all come on out, and I'll put the number in the chat box too.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Can you repeat?
John Coltrane Music Edutainment Fest in Hamlet, North Carolina, October 3rd. We're gonna be doing virtual this year because of COVID, and we're looking for talent. Anybody who sings, dances, writes poetry, draws, writes books, authors. You got talent, you got a business, nonprofit. We connect people to ideas, to opportunities, and we use local, regional folks. And our theme is polishing the diamonds in our own backyard. So there's that book. Right. Dip your bucket where you are. All
right. I'm going to get that information, and we're going to scroll it and get some information out there for people. Also, I want to remind everyone our challenge that we're issuing. We're asking everyone that can to send at least a $7 donation to either one of those cash apps on the bottom of the screen, either myself or DeMarcus Huff. We're trying to $7 is what it costs for Sly Family Diner to feed a homeless person. And come by Thanksgiving holiday, we want to be able to feed 100 people, 100 homeless people. As I said, it's wrong for us to sit and enjoy our family and someone's going through a trash can, someone sitting at home alone, don't have anything to eat. We want to do our part to feed them. So $7, send that $7 cash app to us, and we would greatly appreciate that. All right, guys, good night. Have a great rest of the evening. We'll see you next week right here on Signs of the Time.
Good show. Thanks.
Thank you.
Close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't want to waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't want to waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun.